want to start off very simply. Who's Nash?
Golly, Nash is my 5-year-old, energetic, loving kid, loves life, always has a smile on his face. I'm watching him just be an energetic 2-year-old. Come to find out that he actually had leukemia.
What sort of understanding did he have about any of it?
I think he had little to no understanding. You know, like, I'm sorry, I have to hold you down for the 100th time to stick a needle in your chest so we can get you life-saving treatment. I mean, it broke me. Ringing the bell was huge. It was just incredible to see Nash get up there. The wave of emotions just and joy is indescribable.
Rick, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to start off very simply. Who's Nash?
Oh, golly. Nash is my 5-year-old, energetic, loving kid, loves life, always has a smile on his face. His nickname's Crashy Nashy because he's a nut. Like, when he was like 2 years old, he was doing like backflips off the bunk bed onto like a mattress below. So essentially that is Nash. Loves his brother and his sister. Like, just he's the best son you could ask for.
Well, that's beautiful, and I've heard the Crashy Nashy. I didn't know if that was going to still be true. But on the Crashy Nashy course, that's kind of how things started a little bit, right? You guys saw some bruises and things like that. Tell me a little bit about that sort of time.
You bet. So started seeing a bunch of like bruises pop up all over Nash. And my wife was more concerned about it than I was because I'm watching him just be an energetic 2-year-old where he's running around, bumping into things, jumping off the couch, jumping off the bunk beds, and literally doing flips and just like running into things and then getting up and just like laughing it off.
Yeah, he's being a boy.
He's being a boy,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, come to find out it was one of the precursors and signs that he actually had leukemia.
The activeness?
So no, the bruises.
Yeah.
The bruises. But I mean, he was so active and all over the place that I sort of brushed it off. It was my wife that was so persistent, being like, hey, we need to get, like, something's wrong. We need to get him sort of tested and, you know, get a blood test done to like see what's going on here. Because we were like, it could be anemic, like he could be anemic, or, you know, it could be something worse.
Sure.
So my wife had a gut feeling though that it was something worse. Like in the bruises, there's something called petechiae, which is like these little red dots that sort of pop up like through the bruises. And that's like a big sort of red flag that like, hey, there's cancer present. So especially leukemia. So that's kind of what led us to get a blood test done for that. So
gotcha. So anybody out there that, you know, if they have any concerns and they see any sort of thing close to that,
I mean, that's one of the signs that, hey, your kid might have leukemia.
Is there anything else that you guys saw or know of that people should look out for?
It was just bruising in like weird places. Like he'd have like a bruise on like his forehead, and like I'll send you some pictures and kind of you can see exactly what I was talking about. He looked very pale. Like looking back at it now, it's like the signs were there. You know, it's just nobody thinks like worst case scenario. It's like, hey, my son has cancer, you know.
Right.
You know, it's like he's still being energetic and sort of running around. He did sort of get lethargic towards like close to diagnosis. We were hit with like some illnesses though. It was like, oh, he might be like just recovering from that stuff. And like we got COVID like right before he got diagnosed. So there was like, we were actually going to get a blood test done, got hit with COVID. We were all out of it for like 2 weeks. Nash had a really hard time recovering from COVID. Now we know why. His white blood cell count was in the trash. So yeah, I mean, that's long story short.
Yeah.
That's kind of
so then you get the blood test done. What does that sort of work look like, or even time frame, the diagnosis phase?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, so it was quick. Like we were very fortunate because we were weeks away from him possibly not being here. Like it just sort of lined up pretty well in terms of like, hey, we got the blood test at the right time. It's kind of a God thing. We went to Quest Diagnostics, like got the blood test. They sent it to our pediatrician and they were calling us. Like Quest, the lab, once the results came in, called us like literally nonstop and was like, you have to get him to the hospital immediately. And at that point, we knew something was like way wrong. We had no idea that it was cancer at that point. I think my wife kind of had a hunch, didn't really want to believe it. But yeah, I mean, long story short, they called us over and over and over. We got him down to CHOA, and he was diagnosed at CHOA that night.
And CHOA's, for anyone out there,
yeah, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta.
Yeah.
So he was there were 2 current hospitals for CHOA in Atlanta. One was Eggleston, one was Scottish Rite. They've recently closed Eggleston and opened up Arthur Blank M Hospital, which is incredible. And yeah, I mean, he was sent to Scottish Rite where he was diagnosed with leukemia that night.
Wow. So in the time frame that you did the blood work and you got the news that he was diagnosed, how long do you think?
We got a day.
Wow.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it was 24 hours. I mean, Quest sent it to a lab. They ran the results. Didn't tell us he had cancer, just told us to get him to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta immediately. We were like, I was like, okay, is this, how soon do we need to get him down there? They're like, immediately. This is not something that can wait. And we were like, oh my God, like what's going on?
Yeah.
So,
so they bring you into the room and they tell you and your wife, what is the first thing that popped into your head?
Well, I knew, so the COVID policies were in place at the time. So like my wife was with him. I actually was out showing homes when my wife got the phone call from Quest saying, hey, get him to the hospital. I was showing homes. It was Martin Luther King Day. And long story short, I met them at the hospital, had to wait in the parking lot because of the COVID rules. They were only allowing one person, one parent. Yeah. So my wife was asking, like in the ER, basically in the emergency room, like, hey, what's going on here? Like what does he have? And they're like, well, we'll tell you. We like, it's just going to be a minute. We're going to let a doctor come in and tell you. Everybody knew. Yeah. And at that point, my wife knew. And then they wheelchaired Nash and her up to the 5th floor at the time at Scottish Rite, which was the Aflac cancer blood disorder floor. And like, you see it in big letters as they like wheel you out. And you look at the blood disorder and the cancer logo and you're like, oh my God, which one does he have? You know, like they're not wheeling us up here for no reason.
Right.
Like,
and they let you in at that point or no?
Yeah. So when they brought him up to the 5th floor, the nurse came in and said, hey, is your husband here? And my wife goes, he's in the parking lot. And they were like, well, we'll beep him in downstairs. He needs to come up to room 304 and like
get the news.
We've got news. We've got news to tell you guys. So,
but she didn't find out on her own.
No.
Okay.
And I didn't even none of this was really being communicated to me too, because it was moving so quickly. Mm-hmm. Like my wife didn't even have a chance to say, hey, look, this is what might be going on. The way I sort of found out was like, I got up, I was just told where to go. So I got up off the elevator at the 5th floor, doors open up, and it's the cancer Aflac floor. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, you got to be kidding me. Why am I on this floor? And long story short, they came in and basically gave us the diagnosis. And it was a doctor that was a fellow at the time. So they're like in between like residency and basically becoming like an actual doctor. And I remember getting the news, and it was devastating. Yeah. I was whole world was turned upside down.
Yeah. And then everything is flooding through your head. It's day one, you get the diagnosis, your whole world just got turned upside down. What does day one look like? How quickly do things start to move once the diagnosis is
immediately
spread?
I mean, it's immediately. They're like, you guys are here long term. You need to call family. If you got like kids at home or whatnot, like let them know they're going to be staying with those people for a while. Um, I mean, they started treatment the very next day.
Wow.
The very next day. It was the day after that he had his port input. And they basically said, hey, he's got acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and it was specifically B cell, which we didn't know actually for 24 hours. They were like, he has leukemia. We will know what type, like in the next like 24
After
hours.
surgery is
No, it was before.
just took time.
Yeah, it just took. It was literally. It wasn't even 24 hours. It was the next day. Like he was diagnosed at like 8:00 that night on the January 17th. Of 2022, and it was the next day we found out he had B cell leukemia, and then it was either the next day or the day after that he had his port input. But I mean, they started chemotherapy immediately. They gave him a blood transfusion that night because his like a normal white cell count for someone Nash's age should be in between like I think it's like 10,000 or excuse me, 100,000 and like 200,000. His was 8,000. His hemoglobin was super low. Like a normal count for that's like I think around 400,000 or something like that. And he was like 30,000. Like he's basically out of blood. The leukemia was basically destroying him internally.
And that caused the bruising, the paleness.
That's exactly right. I mean, the lack of platelets and the lack of red blood cells and white blood cells. I mean, it chewed it all down to essentially nothing, which is what leukemia does if left untreated. And you basically die of internal bleeding. So.
Wow. And your wife at that time right away started an Instagram page.
Yeah. I mean, we started an Instagram page immediately. You know, my wife, for anybody who knows her, she is a bookworm. Like she loves to read. They came in and gave us a book. It was like a 500-page book that she really read more than I did. But we went through the whole thing in like 36 hours, highlighted a bunch of stuff. Like they came in and was like, hey, like, do you have any questions for us? And we were like, actually, yeah. And they were like, okay, what are your questions? And we highlighted a bunch of stuff, tabbed a bunch of stuff in that book. And they were like, where are you getting all this information from? And we were like, it's in the book y'all gave us. And they're like, that book's outdated. And we were like, well, we just spent the last 36 hours reading this book.
It's the Bible.
You know, exactly. And it's like, why are you handing out this book to leukemia parents when it's not even relative information anymore? It was like 10 years old. So they're like, we have a completely different way of doing things. So it's kind of interesting when you're diagnosed with cancer. It's not just a couple of doctors come in. It's literally social workers, doctors, nurses, a research team. Like it's like 20 people.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's a lot.
And do you get to choose any of those people, or is it, I guess you're choosing the hospital and those specialists and people?
You know, we were super fortunate, Adam, because like when Nash was diagnosed, the next thing that me and my wife did, you know, was basically say, where do we need to take him to get treated? You know, where is that? What does that look like? Mm-hmm. We were currently renting a place at the time, so we had sort of the flexibility to sort of pick up and move because we were in the process of building like our dream home on a piece of property we bought. And like all of that sort of went on pause. We were Googling like, where do we need to take him? Where the best doctors? Where's the best hospital to do this at? And come to find out, CHOA is a top 5 in the country for leukemia at the time. Wow. So they were like, where's the best place to treat him? Google, and they were like, you are here. Like, so,
silver lining.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, that we were very fortunate. We didn't have to pick up and move, had no idea that like we would experience this, and let alone like a top 5 hospital in the country for children's oncology is right in our backyard.
Yeah. Silver lining.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And going back to the Instagram page, I'm curious because I think a lot of people that are going through this may be scared to share their journey. Maybe what do you know? I mean, I know she's not here, but do you know just the the purpose? Well, like I imagine, and I know some other people have told their stories, but it's
Yeah.
maybe afterwards they start a page and tell the story. And
Yeah.
she started at day one.
Yeah. She started it pretty much immediately. Like it was immediate. And, we saw a couple other families sort of go through it and had no idea sort of what the experience was or whatnot. And I think that we both kind of came to the conclusion that it would be easier to update people that way
Makes sense.
instead of individually reaching out to everybody that was reaching out to us. Because from that sense, it was like the outpouring of support was incredible, but it was also like drinking like a fire hose. Like we were like, world's gotten like, we both run our own businesses. Like we just literally didn't have the physical time
to answer
the
prayers,
every
and the,
DM, every phone call, every text message. So, I mean, we just basically said, hey, look, this is the way we'll keep people updated, and this is the best way to sort of go about it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. What surprised you most early on in the process?
I mean, that's kind of hard to sort of, and I didn't realize how difficult the whole process and journey would be. Like different kids get diagnosed with different things, right? So it's like someone who's diagnosed with, glioblastoma or a brain tumor or something. It's like you typically go in, they get radiation, chemotherapy, you have surgery, you ring the bell in 3 to 6 months. It's in terms of that, it might be more difficult to treat, but it's a quicker treatment process. Leukemia is a minimum of 2.5 years. I mean, it's a minimum of 2.5 years to treat somebody with leukemia that's a child.
How do you mentally, when you learned it was 2.5 years, how did you mentally wrap your head around that?
I didn't. I broke. I broke, man. I mean, it turned everything upside down in our life. I mean, the first year, not including treatment, we spent 100 days in the hospital plus. Wow. It was 100 plus days in the hospital, and they had the COVID policies in place. So the brothers and sisters couldn't come. They did let both parents in the room, but like the only time I really saw my wife for the first year, like when he was in treatment, was really in passing, because it was one of us taking him to clinic to get treated like 3 to 4 days a week. And then if one of us was in the hospital with him 3 or 4 days a span, and then we would switch off. And that was just so, hey, the kids at home still know that they have a mom and a dad. Yeah. And then, sorry.
It's okay.
And then, basically you need a break from that environment. They go through a lot of suffering. Yeah. They go through a lot of suffering.
And you had, at that same time, about a 3-month-old, correct?
Yeah, Hattie was born in October, so October 7th, and then Nash was diagnosed the following January, Martin Luther King Day, so it was January 17th.
How difficult was, I mean I've got a 3-month-old right now. I like, it's hard enough just dealing with a 3-month-old. And you had Jackson, correct, was 5?
Yeah, Jackson was 4 or 5 when, he was 5 when Nash was diagnosed.
How do you, I mean, obviously Hattie doesn't know what's going on, but Jackson, how did he understand anything?
No.
Why am I not seeing my brother?
No, I mean, it was heartbreaking, man. He would ask questions like, am I going to get it? Like, he thought it was contagious. So he avoided Nash until we could make him understand, which was very difficult to do. It was tough. We had a newborn. Jackson came home with COVID again, like 3 months into it. So we ended up pulling Jackson for the rest of the year, pulled him out of kindergarten, because Nash had no immune system going through chemotherapy. And it's like, COVID, can kill somebody with some underlying diseases or underlying health issues. And, for somebody who's going through chemotherapy, it COVID can kill you. So, I mean, we made the conscious decision to just say, hey, look, we're going to have to pull him out of school for the rest of the year, and we'll kind of reassess in the fall and see if that might be an option then.
And I know at that time too, you guys kind of chose to just self-isolate
Yeah, we did.
in the house.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see really family, or I mean, we didn't let anybody see him because we didn't know what to expect, and our priority became protecting Nash. I mean, it was really tough. I had real estate deals going, couldn't really service clients, couldn't really help people, like didn't want to pick up the phone because I was dealing with all of the stuff. And yeah, I mean, it was really tough. It was really, really tough.
Do you have any tips for anyone out there that may be going through this time right now, and they're maybe just watching this on YouTube or Spotify right now, and this is a little bit of a just a release, like they're anything at home, just that isolation time to deal with that? How did you guys get through it?
You need to reach out to somebody who's already been through it. You got to reach out to somebody who's already been through it and sort of lean on them for kind of what to do and how life is, and like find tips and tricks. I mean, it's because leukemia doesn't just affect Nash, it affected the whole family. I mean, finances, I mean, we went from making multiple six figures a year to 50 grand. Yeah. I mean, and just, it was very difficult to support a family, especially the first year and a half into that process, because you're at the hospital so much. I mean, literally, we were at CHOA just about every day.
It's
just about every day.
And you talk about the leukemia doesn't just affect Nash. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with your wife during that time. How much weight and impact did it have on your relationship?
It was tough, man. I mean, there's a statistic out there. It's like 80% of divorces, 80% of cancer kids' parents get divorced.
Wow.
Yeah. And usually it's the dad that leaves because they just can't handle the pressure or the finances, the treatment. Like they can't handle it. They can't hold it together. And I totally understand why now that I've been through it. I mean, it was hard, man. It tested our relationship big time. I mean, there was a point where it was like, we didn't really know if we were going to stay together. I mean, it was really, really difficult. We made a conscious decision to stay together, right, and had some very tough sort of conversations on, going forward, what does it look like, and just scratching and clawing to basically the finish line.
Is there hard. Anything specific that you would give to, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that, maybe husband, wife, and maybe, whatever it is, to what helped you get through it?
Another family was diagnosed at the same time that we were. I don't know if you've seen Elena, Nash's friend. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Cameron and Haley, we leaned on them quite a bit because, they were going through the same thing at the same time. And they were diagnosed 8 days apart, same age, same diagnosis.
Wow.
So, and they live, 30 minutes from us. They live in Milton and we live in Cummings. So, we leaned on them a lot. We were able to sort of get together with their families a lot, and because, I mean, everybody's on the same page about.
That's true.
Everything. They helped a ton. We leaned on family quite a bit, mm-hmm. To help with, getting the kids or whatever, helping get people to and from the hospital or whatever the case may be. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's really tough though, in the sense that you even put strain on like family relationships, because they see that you're suffering and they get that, but they unless they've been through it. I mean, no, it's hard to put into words. You can't put it into words, and you can't really explain the strain that it puts on family finances, like how it affects all the different relationships, how it affects the relationships with the brothers and the sisters. Like the brothers and the sister, see that one kid's getting all the attention, and they start to think like, oh, mommy and daddy don't love me as much because And it's heartbreaking. Therapy is, as funny as it sounds, like therapy and marriage therapy and those kind of things, I would sort of recommend as a tip to do early on and make that a priority in whatever way that you can do it. It's difficult that first year. The first year, you just sort of have to grip and hold on. There's not a good solution except reaching out to people that have already been through it.
Yeah. Thriving's not really an option. It's surviving.
No, you're surviving. You're not thriving. You are surviving.
Nash, what sort of understanding did he have about any of it? Or did he begin to understand? And at what point, if he did?
He was almost 2.5 when he was diagnosed. He's 5 now. He'll be 6 in August. I think he had little to no understanding.
The whole time?
Yeah. Like, not until he was probably 4, like towards the end of treatment. I think that's sort of when he kind of gets, like, he knew he had cancer. He knew that he was getting treatment for cancer. He didn't really understand a lot of it.
Anything beyond that?
I mean, like, it's hard to explain or articulate it to like a 2-year-old. To be honest, man, I didn't really understand it myself,
right,
at some points, So it's really difficult to sort of, like, when I don't even really get it, to articulate it to my 2-year-old, like, I'm sorry, I have to hold you down for the 100th time to stick a needle in your chest so we can get you life-saving treatment. I mean, it just, they don't get it. They don't understand.
Your wife talked about, in some of her posts that I saw, fearing that that Nash would stop trusting her.
Yeah.
Did that ever happen? Did it ever occur?
No, but I think that, like, there was a fear there with Nash. Like, whenever we would go to the hospital, like, he knew, like, he would ask, like, on the way down, am I going to have to get a pokey? Am I going to have to get this? Am I going to have to get that? And, it's one of those moments where you're just crying on the way down there. And it's like, yeah, you are going to have to get another one of these. And I'm really sorry. And it's not fair. And you don't understand why, but maybe later you'll understand why mom and dad had to do this.
Yeah.
It's much better now that we're, like, into, post-treatment stuff, and we're just getting blood work done, once a month. But yeah, I mean, that was definitely a fear and something we talked about, often, that we, how much therapy is my kid going to need after this? Like, how is this going to affect him?
Long term.
Yeah, long term.
Yeah. And on that topic of trust specifically, so he never really, like, lost trust. And I think your wife attributed in one of the posts to being honest. How much honesty would you recommend that parents give their child that might be going through this?
It depends. It really depends on what age your child is. Because, I mean, at 2 years old, they're not going to really remember half the stuff that you tell them anyways. If you have a teenager that's going through something like this, I mean, I think you kind of have to lay everything out on the table and let them know, because there has to be an end goal in mind. And it's like, hey, you have to do this. There is no alternative treatment for leukemia. I'm not talking about, like, clinical trials and whatnot, but, like, leukemia treatment, in a sense, is a very cookie cutter process. It's like they discovered how leukemia treatment worked back in, like, the 50s or 60s, and they've been doing it the same way pretty much ever since. It hasn't evolved really at all. It's really the same drugs that they were using in the 50s and 60s. They're starting to change it now. There's a lot of immunotherapy and a lot of promises, which we actually got to experience during our process.
Really?
Yeah. But as far as leukemia treatment goes in general, it's very cookie cutter. The first 60 days, you get these chemotherapies. The next 60 days, you get these chemotherapies, and so on and so forth. And they divide it up over, like, it's every 60 to 90 days. You're getting different types of chemotherapies. Some are repetitive, some are not. But that basically made up like the 2.5-year treatment plan for Nash.
Is there any, so it's every 60 to 90 days you enter kind of a different phase?
Yeah.
I know you're not necessarily an expert, but going through it, I'm sure you
Oh,
feel.
I could probably treat somebody with leukemia at this point. I know exactly what happens at what point and what not, and know how to read blood levels and everything. So my wife knows it more in and out than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the first phase is called induction. It's heavy on steroids, heavy on, different types of chemotherapies. One's called 6MP, which is the shortened version name of it. It's something that you get pretty much throughout your entire 2.5 years, 3 years of cancer treatment. So
I read too that it's up to 8 different types of chemo that they get.
Yeah, I mean, there's Ara-C. I mean, if you count the steroids, which is like they classify as a type of chemotherapy for leukemia, you got Ara-C, you got that, you got the steroids, you got vincristine, you got dioxirubicin. That's 4. You got methotrexate. I mean, there's a bunch. I would say it's somewhere in the realm of 8 to 12 different chemotherapies that they sort of rotate through there.
So Nash at one point actually had a seizure.
He did,
correct?
yeah. It was either on Father's Day or real close to Father's Day, which always lines up with my birthday. So I remember we spent my birthday in the hospital. Nash was in a coma. Yeah, he had a seizure.
Do they know what caused?
So they don't know for sure. So he developed sepsis. So like the clinical trial he went through with blinatumomab, it's real interesting. You get a backpack with chemotherapy that you have to refill every 48 hours. And you are accessed for 30 days straight. And they change the bandage like once every 7 days to make sure it's clean and there's nothing getting into that main line. Because when you get a port, it basically goes into your aorta. And that's how they pump everything in. So long story short, they think that he got some sort of bacteria in there and he became septic. Mm-hmm. And he ran a fever. We took him to the hospital. I believe it was on Father's Day. He had like 102 fever. They gave him some medicine and he broke a fever in like 15 minutes. And the doctor was like, whoa, what's going on here? And they moved him and my wife, Nash and my wife, to a trauma room. And my wife was like, what's up? And 10 minutes later, he had a seizure. He had like a 15-minute seizure where they had to induce him into a coma in order to get him to stop because like he just wouldn't stop seizing. Wow. Mm-hmm. It was really scary. We spent, I think, 4 weeks in the hospital pretty much straight at that point. Be honest, I thought that was the moment we were going to lose him. I really did. Because like I didn't know what was going to happen. I was like, you walk in, he's hooked up to monitors. He's on a breathing tube, and I remember it was like a week later or something like that. I might have my days off a little bit, but he woke up and pulled the breathing tube out himself.
Wow.
Yeah. He literally he started pulling it out and they came in and took it out. So, yeah, long story short, that was one of the scarier moments. That was during the clinical trial. It cut the clinical trial short by 2 days, and then he got to resume it for another 30 days, like a couple months later. Okay. And then they shut the clinical trial down.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of that moment?
No. Oh. They shut it down. So the interesting thing about blinatumomab, and thank God it was a clinical trial, it's really expensive. It's like $10,000 every single time they have to do a refill on the bag. Wow. So every 48 hours for 60 days, you can see how that adds up very, very quickly. Long story short, the FDA had a problem with the size of the bag. I heard a rumor, though, Adam, that the drug got patent sharked by another drug company that was trying to buy it. So they basically refused to like let them take over the clinical trials and whatnot. It got patent sharked, and basically the FDA sort of shut it down. I don't know that for sure. I heard from some nurses and some doctors that that's kind of what happened.
But isn't it unfortunate that that's even a thing?
Yeah, you're messing with kids, man. It's like, that's a life-saving drug that helped put my kid into remission and is going to help keep him in remission. And here you are messing with other kids getting this potentially life-saving treatment where they're removing the first year of treatment in places like Russia and replacing it with 2 months of this, where it doesn't kill all your white blood cells, so they feel good on it.
Wow.
And like it blows my mind. When he was diagnosed, dude, it was such a eye opener in how corrupt and how messed up the whole medical and pharmaceutical industry is, and how they just charge these outrageous prices for life-saving stuff. Like, I can't imagine the people who do not qualify for something like Katie Beckett that are on like Blue Cross Blue Shield or somebody like that. And it's like, nah, dude, you've hit your maximum. We're done covering this stuff. Like, we've covered $2 million and the 8 million is on you. It's like, what, like, are you kidding me? It's like, I don't have a choice here. You want to let my kid die? Like, he has to receive this treatment. Yeah. It blows my mind. It really does.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
What levels and what certain specific items are important for somebody out there that might be going through it to track?
For us, I mean, blood levels, it's like you're constantly getting the blood levels checked. So, I mean, if you're seeing, like, when you're in the treatment process, if you're seeing a lot of bruises and stuff pop up, you probably need to go get their blood levels checked to make sure that the white cell and the platelets and the hemoglobin is like high enough. We were constantly getting transfusions for him because if you don't keep those levels up and they're too low, you can't receive chemotherapy and it pushes your treatment out. And
did that ever happen for you guys?
Yeah, it did. It happened more than once. You know, it's why our treatment plan honestly was, I mean, and the fact that he had a difficult time going into remission, but our treatment plan was probably closer. I have to do the math in my head, but I mean, it was somewhere in between that 2.5 to 3 year mark. And if they respond well and they fall into the right buckets, it can be closer to the 2-year mark. So it just sort of depends on, like, how does the kid handle the chemotherapies? How much is it decimating their white blood cells and everything else? They try to keep it in a range that's like good for killing the cancer and keeping the cancer away. And at the same time, you're healthy enough to be treated. Mm-hmm. So, because there were times where his white blood cell count was nothing. I mean, he's immune compromised. Yeah. You get sick, you get a cold with no immune system, you run 104 fever, and then you're in the hospital for a week. Jeez. Which happened.
Yeah, that's one thing that I read when I was just doing the research prepping for this. Is I feel like it's something that it's definitely not something that I felt like was going to happen, that I was going to read about, that the random sicknesses that, you think about, okay, well, he's got to go through chemo, he's got to go through these treatments to treat the cancer. But then because of the treatments, all the other things, I mean, do you feel like that, it almost, reading through it, it felt like that was almost half the battle, was not even cancer. It was just everything else.
Yeah. I mean, it affects every member of the family in a different way, and everybody copes in a different way. So, yeah, I mean, knowing what to get and when to get it. I remember, like, the second half after induction, it's like the next 60 days. I forget the name of the phase, but he had Ara-C shots. And like
what are those?
Ara-C is a chemotherapy that they send you home with in the form of shots that mom and dad have to give. So we're holding him down at home, making sure that he's screaming his head off because he's getting a shot that's going to make him feel like absolute garbage, and he's probably going to throw up in the next couple hours because he's going to respond to the chemotherapy. And, you're making him that whole trust thing. It comes back to that whole trust thing. It's like that's kind of where it started from, because it's like if you can't hold him down and he won't let you do it, then you have to take him in and they do it, which some people opt to do. But like, you're there enough. Like, you don't want to make an extra trip down there to get a shot that you could have given at home, if that makes sense. Because that's not enjoyable for us. That's not an environment they enjoy being in. That's not an environment we enjoy being in. We would rather just be able to do it at home. But I mean, I remember giving him Ara-C shots. I think there were like 8 over the course of a month we had to give him,
and that,
at home.
That trust part is, he's sitting there at home wanting to just be a 2-year-old.
That's exactly right. He wants to play with toy blocks and, action figures and, watch Coco Melon at the time, I mean, it's, hey, Nash, we have to give you a shot, buddy. No pokey. It's heartbreaking.
I can't imagine. But you mentioned that you guys did have a clinical trial.
We did.
Correct?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So blinatumomab was the clinical trial that we were so fortunate. Out of the 162 kids or something like that, we were one of 2 that got selected
Wow.
for the trial. So very, very fortunate.
What made you want to do the trial?
Caitlin had done enough research and saw the promises of it. And we spoke to the head oncologist, Dr. Melinda Polly, who heads up really the oncology department at Showa, where everybody felt that it was great for him long-term in reducing his chances of relapsing. And come to find out, now later, like, they've done studies on this particular clinical trial where they have removed the whole first year of chemo and replaced it with 2 months of this. And like, I think they did it with 400 kids or something like that in Russia. And like, I think it's like 395 kids have stayed in remission.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, how does it feel to know, was part of the decision based on like knowing that if it works, that you were a part of the solution?
Sort of. I mean, it's kind of weird when you first get diagnosed with cancer, you're so worried about what the chemotherapy is going to do. And it's like, I really don't want my child to go through this. And as you get into the process and you start to realize the reality, and the reality starts to set in, you really worry about, is my kid getting enough chemotherapy? Like, every pill, like every scrap, every piece, every liquid, every shot, like all of it has to make it in. Because if it doesn't, is that going to be the reason why he relapses in a couple of years? Is that going to be the reason? Like, you as a parent, you really want to make sure it's like, it's a weird transition. I can't emphasize that enough. It's like, you really worry about, hey, are they getting enough chemotherapy? And then it's like, oh my God, did I give him enough? Did I make sure that like every sliver of the pill, when you cut it up and you mash it up into a liquid, because a 2-year-old can't swallow pills. Nash was fortunate. We were very fortunate that he learned to swallow pills at like 3.
Wow.
So it made the process a lot easier because we just give him the pill and he'd swallow it. Yeah. And in fact, Nash has swallowed probably more pills in his life than I have, which is wild to think about.
Yeah. Well, I read somewhere, like, just jumping back to the beginning real quick, it was like 193 different medications in the first month.
Yeah.
Your wife posted, I think, that amount or something.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I mean, you start to worry. They keep tabs on the liver, make sure that the liver is actually doing okay. Yeah. I mean, it's wild.
And you mentioned work a little bit. I mean, how you work for yourself, and I didn't know your wife did as well. I mean, what sort of, financial support, of course you don't have to open up about yours or anything like that, but what sort of financial support was there with hospitals? Like, are they lenient about there? I know about that. A lot of people out there are probably sitting there saying, like, how are we going to afford this? How can we get through it? And
dude, you look at the, because on the app, like, they have you download, it's called My Chart.
Mm-hmm.
You download an app and like it shows the bill, and the bill like racks up quick. I'm pretty sure he was at $1 million in like expenses and treatment and all that by the end of like the first month.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think total he was close to like 10 million bucks by the end of everything.
And I mean, again, you don't have to share your personal
No,
situation if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But
So like, look, I'm self-employed, own my own business. My wife is a business owner as well. She is an owner now in 3 different businesses. Some she's a partner in, some she owns outright. And then I'm I'm an investor in some businesses as well. So I've got some K2s and whatnot.
Yeah. But I mean, what financial assistance was there any?
So the big one was there's a Medicaid program called Katie Beckett, because they basically assume that specifically Katie Beckett is specifically for leukemia.
Okay.
So if you have a child going through leukemia, and the social worker is the one that told us about this, it's like this program, if you get accepted, will cover everything 100%. Wow. No questions asked, because they assume, because the treatment is so intensive, that if you were a 2-income household, you're going down to 1.
Right.
Because somebody's got to work and somebody's got to take care of the treatment. Now, it's difficult. It's not as simple as that, obviously, if you have like multiple kids and whatnot. Like we went from being again, we were making multiple 6 figures on our way to the 7-figure mark. And we went down to making $50,000 over the next couple of years. And we were just barely getting by. We were covering rent, and we were covering food and insurance, like auto insurance, and that was it. So I mean, from that standpoint, there are some great organizations out there. Katie Beckett's the biggest one that made the most financial impact, because that basically it was like 6 months before that got approved. But once that got approved, that was a huge stressor off our backs, because we didn't this is gonna bankrupt us.
Right.
There was no chance that we did not have the access or the funds to.
I mean, nobody does. Nobody has that sort.
I mean, I don't have $10 million laying around. Had no idea that it was that expensive to treat patients. I mean, one of the vincristine, which is one of the chemotherapies, it's a flower that grows on the island of Madagascar. And in order to get like one treatment of it, it's like 1,000 pounds of that flower. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, and they've been using that same treatment since the 60s, to treat the kids.
Yeah.
So it's wild. So, I mean, you can imagine with just that information, how expensive that process is to render that chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So thank God something like Katie Beckett existed, because otherwise, I mean, I would have filed for bankruptcy. There was no chance.
Yeah.
So,
and you guys had lots of organizations that you kind of were partnered with, and they reached out, or you guys reached out. How, if somebody, like, we'll get into the specific organizations here in a second, because I definitely want to, get them out there.
Yeah.
But how did you guys get their attention? How would somebody else go about that?
I mean, a lot of it was, we spoke to other cancer families that like said, hey, like if you're struggling financially, like this is a great organization that will pay your bills next month. You just reach out to them and they'll take care of it. One is Cure. Cure is the childhood cancer organization. I would say it's the face of like the organizations as far as childhood cancer goes. Another one that we were huge beneficiaries of, and we give back a lot to, is P4. So we've spoken at some of their events. They actually at River Club.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they had a golf tournament here not too long ago that we spoke at.
Wow.
And then, golly, Rally Foundation is another one. I would say those are the 3 really big ones that really financially sort of helped, like, keep the lights on, so to speak.
Yeah. And then you've got that side of the treatment or the help.
Mm-hmm.
What about some of the organizations on the other side of the help? Like, I know you guys had some retreat center that you went to, like in Florida and stuff. Like, what about the emotional help? What are some organizations, and what did they do for you?
Yeah, you bet. So, I mean, what sort of got our family life really sort of back on track? There's this great organization that literally will send you to the beach and you are weighted on hand and foot. And they've got all these fun activities for the kids and everything else. Golly, what's the name of that organization?
We'll make sure we put it on the
Yeah,
screen after.
I mean,
That's okay. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
we'll make sure we.
I mean,
get in the notes.
there's one called Blue Skies that sends you to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of them.
Was it Lighthouse something?
Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Thank you. Lighthouse is the other one. I can't believe I forgot that. Lighthouse had a huge impact on us. I mean, it's Christian based. You literally, it's like a church will come in. They send like the whole church. They basically wait on you hand and foot and serve you the week. Like they make your beds, they do your laundry.
Wow.
You are there to connect with other cancer families. Their kids connect, like the cancer kids connect, their brothers and sisters like all connect and whatnot. And I mean, we've made friends on that trip that like I still keep in touch with to today.
Yeah.
Like there's they were a little bit ahead of us in treatment, but the Ropers out, they're from California. Oh, and wow. We just we hit it off great with them.
Yeah.
Dean and Stephanie Roper.
Yeah. Anything else? I know there was one, it may have been either a foundation or it was just something you guys did that I saw. It was like a lemonade stand or something like that.
Oh yeah. I think the kids, I mean, this happened several times throughout the process, but I mean, the kids basically would do a lemonade stand and we would raise money for other kids, because when you're in the hospital, it's like the kids are stuck to a bed for the most part.
Right.
If you're getting chemotherapy, you can't leave the floor, so you can walk the floor, but that's really it. And usually when you're getting chemotherapy, you don't feel like walking. So it's really, you're stuck with a screen in your hand. So my wife, who is a saint, would encourage the kids to do something sort of entrepreneurial, to raise money, to go buy like sensory kits and whatnot for kids that are going through treatment. Or we'd go buy, she's done several things. Like there's a bunch of like Squishmallows and stuff.
Yeah.
Like this past Christmas, we dropped off hundreds of Squishmallows.
That's amazing.
To the hospital. So it's like, those are huge.
So that was just your wife's.
That's just Caitlin. That's just Caitlin being Caitlin, man. Just like knowing how difficult it was, and seeing like the kids suffer, and man, I can't tell you how many times we'd be on the floor and you would hear like a code red, and the next day that room is empty, which means that that kid didn't make it. And, her whole philosophy was, well, look, if we can just make somebody smile with a toy or something during that process, let's do it. Especially now that we're on the other side, how do we sort of stay involved with families that are going through it? Yeah. Because we know how difficult it was. And, there's things that we wish people did for us that weren't done. And it's what would we have wanted to be done for us during that time?
100%. And going on the foundations even more, you mentioned to me one time very early when we first started talking that only 4% of cancer research funds or whatever it might be.
Yeah, the federal budget, like NIH or whatever it is, only 4% goes to childhood cancer. The rest goes to basically prostate cancer and breast cancer. Those are the big ones, which is nothing against those cancers. But I mean, look, dude, if we're not taking care of our kids, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. What are we doing?
Do you know the numbers in terms of is it a numbers thing because only X amount of people go through childhood cancer and that much more go through breast cancer?
No, I don't think so. So the number of kids that will get cancer before they turn 18, it's 1 out of 262 now.
What?
Yeah. 20 years ago it was 1 out of 10,000. Today it's 1 out of 262. And even when Nash was diagnosed, it was 1 out of 304 or something like that. So the numbers are getting worse. They're not getting better. It's the number of kids that are getting cancer is growing exponentially. It's growing at a higher rate than people who are coming down with breast cancer and people who are coming down with, like, everybody's eventually going to get prostate cancer. That's a dude. But like, prostate cancer's the most treatable cancer that probably exists on the planet.
Sure.
Like, you can go 25 years without treating prostate cancer.
But so you're telling me 1 out of 262 kids will have cancer
before they turn the age 18.
Wow. I did not know the number was that dramatic.
Well, that's why, honestly, it's like I'm a pretty big RFK fan. Like, he's one of the very few people that have sort of addressed this sort of issue. It's like, what is the underlying issue that's causing cancer
to go down, to make that big of a...
Yeah. I mean,
or to go up.
To go up. Yeah, why is it increasing at such a rapid rate? And I mean, I think it's food, water. I mean, I think it's a lot of things that was one of the crazy things to me. It was sort of an eye opener to how bad the water supply is like, when we got diagnosed, there were cancer organizations that literally said, and nurses in the hospital are like, they have a special filter at the hospital that the cancer kids are only allowed to drink out of. Wow. You're not allowed to have anything from the tap.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to have anything. Tap water is a big no-no. And a lot of that is like, they're going through cancer treatment and they need everything to be absolutely purified. But like, we had somebody that sent us a very expensive water filtration system that we still have to this day, that we put all our water through, because there's stuff they can't, atrazine, fluoride, birth control, that's all in the water supply. That's either being added to the water supply, or it's you can't filter it at a city level or a local municipality level. So I think a big cause of that is probably from that. But I mean, I'm speculating. That's just from doing some research and kind of going down some rabbit holes. But I mean, I think food and water is probably a big contributor.
Sure. So Nash, tell me about the physical changes that he underwent during this entire process.
The first month he gained 25 pounds from the steroid use.
And 25 pounds at a 2-year-old. What? I mean, do you know the weight specifically? Because was it like, 15% of his body weight? Like,
oh no, it was like 40 or 50% of his body weight.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't a big kid to begin with, but I mean, he, like, if I showed you pictures of him, he looked like Russell from Up.
Yeah.
You can laugh. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, we laugh. We joke. We joke about it now, but I mean, he literally, like, the steroids, if it was yellow or orange food, he craved it. And you don't really want to deny them during that time. Yeah. And they told us not to. And they said, let him eat what he wants to eat, because eating is a challenge within itself, going through chemotherapy. Mm-hmm. But the steroids, like, he ate every 30 minutes, man.
Wow.
Like, you'd get him a snack, and by the time he was done with that snack, he wanted another one. He blew up like a balloon. Wow. And all the kids do that go through leukemia treatment, I mean, they don't look like the same kids.
So it's not necessarily the treatment that's doing it. It's you're hungry more often because of everything. Your body's working so hard.
I mean, the steroids definitely make you gain weight. I mean, that's one of the side effects of that chemo, that specific steroid that's classified as a chemotherapy. I mean, it's makes you gain weight and then, loses weight. I mean, there were times where Hattie is a 1-year-old she was a chunky baby, but I mean, she weighed pretty much the same as Nash when he was a 3-year-old.
Wow.
So, I mean, the weight loss was intense. The mood swings that came with it was very intense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of that's some like anger from the kid, because they don't know what's going on. They can't articulate themselves well at that age. You're going through the 3-year-old sort of terrible 2, terrible 3s, sure, whatever you want to call it. And then you add chemotherapy and steroids on top of it. And it's like, you've got an uncontrollable wild animal as a child. Yeah. So,
and the hair was that difficult for Nash to lose his hair?
He didn't really understand it. We did things. I shaved my head with him. Like, it was falling out at a very rapid rate. There is a chemotherapy called dioxirubicin, which you get around the 7 to 8 month mark. where it literally, they call it the red devil because it's literally red.
Wow.
It's literally red when they inject it. It has terrible side effects. One of the side effects is heart failure, AFib. Yeah, they literally have paddles in the room when you're getting that chemotherapy because that is a very real possibility. It's like 30% or 40% of the kids experience AFib when they get that. So,
How do you
that,
how do you manage knowing that your child's getting that emotionally?
um, I mean, you don't, dude. It broke me. It I can't emphasize that enough. It broke me. It put me in a state of depression. I was not myself for a year and a half.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was a terrible father. I was a terrible husband. I was a terrible I was a terrible human being. Like, and that's just me being honest. Like I was not in a good headspace at all. I gained a ton of weight. I was stress eating
I mean,
myself.
how could you not?
I mean,
The
yeah, I mean, it just, like, I wouldn't wish what we went through to on my worst enemy. Um, as far as the headspace goes, you don't, it's just something you have to do. Again, you're surviving, you're not thriving. You were just praying to God that they're not going to have AFib when that happens. And I mean, he didn't, thank God. And, his hair started falling out at a rapid rate 2 or 3 days later. And I mean, that's when he lost his hair. And he looked like, I don't know how to say this politely or politically correct, but he kind of looked like a meth head in the sense that, like, he had hair here and he didn't have hair here. And I mean, he just looked like somebody who was living in the woods for years and years and years and got in a fight with a bear or something. I don't know. I mean, so I basically shaved my head, showed him that it was okay, and then we shaved his head immediately after that. So,
well, I wouldn't classify you as a bad dad in that scenario.
dude,
That sounds like a pretty good
I
dad
might have
to
had
me.
my moments, but I mean, look, I'll be just completely honest, and you have to forgive yourself as a parent when you're kind of going through this because I mean, you're surviving. You are just surviving. You just have to be there. You just have to be there and be present, and it's hard. It's hard to even be present.
Yeah. Let's fast forward to ringing the bell. How did that
best day
feel?
of my life? I mean, best day of my life, and I mean, it was incredible. I mean, just the emotion that just kind of came from that is just indescribable. It's the best feeling in the world.
Did it feel like the weight was off? Did
No.
it feel
No, I mean, the chance of relapse always there,
Mhm.
but it's putting a pin or closing a chapter on that book that it's like, hey, this is behind us and we can get back to some sense of normalcy now.
Mhm.
And you always worry. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't worry about it today. That thought's always with you. It's like the chances of them not relapsing after 5 years of post treatment is when it goes down significantly.
Okay.
But he's got really good chances. 80% that it will not come back. I've heard too many horror stories from too many different parents. Like, we were on a retreat, one of the lighthouse retreats where somebody had gotten leukemia for the third time, and I mean they recently passed, and they had the same chances that Nash had. I mean, we just hope and pray, and every day's a gift, and we kind of just sort of approach it that way. But I mean, ringing the bell was huge. It was just incredible to see Nash get up there. We did it with the Howards. So Elena rang the bell at the same time.
Yeah.
We're very close to that family. So we just did the bell ringing at the same time. And it was great. They finished treatment at the same time. They went through it at the same time. We figured they should ring the bell at the same time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it just, the wave of emotions just and joy is indescribable.
Well, to close out this, or I should say, but before we close out this, I want to just, anything else that you want to mention to any certain message to anyone out there that is going through this right now, might be a parent, might be another dad out there that's just struggling with those emotions, might be anything that you didn't touch on. I just want to make sure I give you the opportunity.
Don't be afraid I have a couple things. I would say, do not be afraid to reach out to somebody and be vulnerable about what you're going through. And preferably somebody who has already gone through it. You can reach out to a parent, you can reach out to a brother, you can reach out to a sister, you can reach out to a friend. Unless they've gone through it, they're just not going to get it. And I don't mean that in a mean way or an insensitive way. It's impossible for them to understand it unless they've been through it. The second thing is just whatever faith you are a part of, you just double down on that. I'd go to prayer. It's something I did not do enough that I wish I would have done immensely more, because it's one of the only ways to sort of make your suffering make sense. Because I mean, as a cancer parent, the one thing that you want to do is just trade places with that person. And prayer is something that will help you kind of get through it. It might not necessarily ease the suffering, but it's going to help you get through it in a much more graceful manner. The third is I would take time for yourself and your spouse. You have to. I mean, it's because you're not going, the date nights are gone. I mean, the date nights are gone. The spending time with your spouse is gone. And even when you are spending time with your spouse, you are not 100% present. Yeah. So, to just spend time with your spouse kind of one-on-one, or spend time for yourself, whether that's just getting a workout in, whether that is doing whatever you love that kind of takes your mind off it a little bit, or even just to help you process it. Like those are the three things that I would sort of recommend. So like in conclusion, like reach out to somebody who's been through it, prayer, and then finding time for yourself or your spouse to kind of spend together away from the situation.
Amazing. Well, what we want to do here is just present the opportunity for, let's, I'm sure a lot of people listening, if they've listened through this whole thing, if they're not going through it, they're wondering how they can help. Is there any specific organization that we can shout out today that we can say, hey, shout them out?
Yeah. So me and my wife were actually putting together a cancer research fund through Cure.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's like, if you want to get in touch with my wife, you can DM her at Nashy Strong. That is the page that we run for Nash.
We'll make sure we put it up there.
Yeah. As well. So, that is sort of the best way. We're putting together a research fund where we were just kind of crowdfunding that, and we have to get to $25,000 in order. That's a minimum in order to do and really, as you get closer to the 6-figure mark, that's where they can actually throw some dollars at their sort of research, immunotherapies and whatnot. Immunotherapies really tremendously help Nash go into remission, stay in remission. I firmly believe that. Not that the other cancers were not effective, but the immunotherapy is really the future of that. So honestly, that's where the research dollars are best spent.
Well, we'll make sure that we give everyone the opportunity to do that. And I appreciate you sharing your story today.
Dude, of course. Thanks for having me on, man. It's an honor.